Have you ever noticed that some of the kindest people you know also seem to be the most exhausted? The ones who always show up, always smile, always agree to help, no matter what. But if you look a little closer, you might see the fatigue in their eyes. You might sense that behind their warmth lies something heavier, maybe pain or weariness or a quiet sadness. We often think of kindness as something pure and simple, a clear measure of goodness. We teach children to be kind. We praise kind leaders, and we value kindness as proof of our humanity. Yet, like most things in life, kindness has another side, a shadow we rarely talk about. When we ignore that shadow, when we pretend it doesn't exist, kindness itself can become harmful. It begins subtly. A child learns that being pleasant and helpful earns them love and approval. When they ignore their own needs to make others happy, they receive praise, smiles, maybe even affection they otherwise wouldn't get. Over time, this link between self-sacrifice and acceptance becomes deeply ingrained. Kindness turns into a survival tool. As they grow older, it becomes harder to tell where their real self ends and where other people's expectations begin. They become the dependable one, the good person, the friend who never says no. But here's the truth. When kindness comes from fear of rejection, or the need to be valued, it stops being genuine. It becomes a mask. And the longer someone wears that mask, the more it suffocates who they truly are. Think of the people in your life who are endlessly giving. They'll listen to your problems for hours, help you move, lend money they can't spare, and stay up late just to make sure you're okay. It might seem admirable, even noble, but if you've ever been that person, you know what hides beneath it. Behind every act of constant giving is a small, silenced voice asking, "What about me?" That voice is often ignored because chronic kindness has an unspoken rule. You're not allowed to put yourself first. Psychologists have a term for this: compassion fatigue. It's what happens when someone gives so much of their empathy and care that they eventually run dry. Doctors, nurses, teachers, and parents experience it. But it's not limited to professions. Anyone who constantly puts others before themselves is at risk. Research shows that people who habitually prioritize others report higher levels of anxiety, depression, and even physical health problems compared to those who maintain balance. Kindness, when pushed too far, becomes a form of self-erasure. That's the darker side of it. Kindness without boundaries isn't really kindness, it's quiet self-destruction. It's like watering every plant in the garden, but forgetting your own roots. Eventually, the gardener collapses, and the garden withers too. There's another unsettling truth. Sometimes kindness itself becomes a weapon, not intentionally, but subtly. When someone is always known as the kind one, people start expecting it. They depend on it. Without realizing it, that person's kindness teaches others that their needs come second. Over time, people stop asking what they want because they assume they'll always adapt. The kind person ends up teaching the world to overlook them. This creates a painful paradox. The kinder you are, the more invisible you become. And invisibility isn't peace, it's loneliness, disguised as politeness. That doesn't mean kindness is bad. Real kindness, the kind that comes from love and wholeness, is one of the most powerful forces on earth. But there's a difference between kindness that flows from abundance and kindness that comes from emptiness. One heals, the other drains. One grows from love, the other from fear. Studies back this up. Research from the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology found that people who struggle to say no, often those seen as kind or agreeable, are far more likely to burn out. Another study from the University of California, Berkeley, showed that helping others increases happiness only when it's genuine and voluntary. When people act kind out of guilt, fear, or obligation, it has the opposite effect, lowering happiness and raising stress. Yet many of us stay trapped in that cycle. We keep saying yes because we don't want to disappoint anyone. We keep giving because we don't want to seem selfish. We keep sacrificing because we don't want to lose love. But over time, this endless giving comes at a heavy cost. You start to lose sight of who you are. You forget what you even want because your identity is built entirely around serving others. You become a stranger to yourself. And here's where the inner chaos begins. When you bury your needs, silence your anger, and hide your boundaries under the label of kindness, those emotions don't vanish. They sit in the dark, growing stronger. Eventually, they leak out, maybe in irritation, sarcasm, or resentment. Or sometimes, after years of suppression, they explode all at once, leaving you shocked at your own reaction. We like to think that kindness protects us from negativity, but kindness without honesty often creates the perfect environment for it. Because every time you say yes when you mean no, every time you smile when you want to cry, every time you silence yourself to make someone else comfortable, you're not being kind. You're abandoning yourself, and that abandonment always has consequences. So why do we do it? Why do kind people struggle so deeply with boundaries? The answer lies in conditioning. From a young age, many of us are taught that kindness equals worthiness, that being agreeable is safer than being authentic, and that love must be earned through what we give, not who we are. Children who grow up in homes where affection depends on obedience or self-sacrifice often carry that belief into adulthood. Kindness is beautiful, but only when it includes yourself too. They grow into adults who mistake pleasing others for genuine kindness. But real kindness doesn't mean erasing yourself. It includes you too. If being kind is draining your peace, happiness, and energy, then it's no longer kindness. It's self-neglect disguised as virtue. This is where awareness becomes essential. Neuroscience explains that our brains have something called the mirror neuron system, which allows us to experience empathy. When you see someone in pain, your brain reacts as if you are hurting too. That's why kindness feels natural. It's how we're wired to connect. But here's the problem. Mirror neurons can't tell the difference between healthy empathy and harmful over-empathy. If you constantly absorb other people's pain without setting limits, your brain becomes overloaded with stress signals. Over time, this can trigger chronic stress, weaken your immune system, and cause emotional burnout. Simply put, your brain isn't designed for endless, boundaryless compassion. It's designed for balanced connection. So, the dark side of kindness isn't that kindness is bad. It's that fear, conditioning, or emotional wounds can twist kindness into something that appears noble, but quietly destroys us. When that happens, what once seemed like our greatest strength becomes the source of our breakdown. Let's pause and think. If you've ever felt drained, resentful, or unseen, despite being known as a kind person, you're not alone. You're not broken. You're not weak. You're simply reacting to a world that never taught you how to balance caring for others with caring for yourself. It's not a flaw. It's a signal. Suppressed truths always find a way to surface. This leads to the real question. How do we practice kindness without letting it consume us? How do we stay compassionate without becoming martyrs? How can we love others without losing ourselves? The answer rests in one fundamental truth. Kindness must start with you. This isn't about selfishness. It's about sustainability. If your kindness excludes yourself, it isn't real kindness, it's a performance. And all performances eventually collapse. Think about airplane safety instructions. In an emergency, you're told to put your oxygen mask on first before helping others. It may sound selfish, but it's logical. If you can't breathe, you can't save anyone else. The same applies to kindness. When you ignore your needs, your ability to genuinely care for others eventually suffocates. That's where boundaries come in. For many kind-hearted people, boundaries can feel uncomfortable, like rejection or selfishness. But in truth, boundaries are the most honest expression of love. They say, this is what I can give, and this is what I can't. They say, my care is real, but it cannot survive if I'm running on empty. Boundaries prevent love from turning into resentment. Psychologists describe boundaries as invisible lines that show where you end and another person begins. Without them, relationships blur and turn into dependency or quiet suffering. With them, relationships grow stronger, clearer, and more respectful. Research even shows that people with healthy boundaries often experience deeper, more authentic connections, because their kindness comes from genuine choice, not obligation. And here's another insight. Those who honor their own limits are viewed as more trustworthy. Why? Because when they say yes, it truly means yes. Their kindness is not forced, it's real. Authenticity draws people in. But here's the real challenge. Setting boundaries isn't only about saying no to others, it's about saying yes to yourself. That can feel uneasy if you've always linked your worth to being selfless. It may even feel like you're betraying the very image that people admire you for. And yes, you might lose certain relationships along the way. Some people won't like it when you stop overextending yourself. Others might resist, accuse you of changing, or even pull away. That hurts, but it's necessary. Because relationships built on the expectation of constant giving were never truly equal to begin with. Let's go deeper into the psychology behind this. There's a term called pathological altruism. It explains what happens when the urge to help ends up causing harm, either to the giver or the receiver. For example, when someone sacrifices their health to care for others, or when constant rescuing prevents the other person from becoming independent. Pathological altruism looks like kindness, but in truth it creates dependency, guilt, and burnout. It's kindness turned harmful. This connects to something even broader, the cultural myth of the good person. Many societies treat kindness as the ultimate virtue, but often in ways that encourage self-erasure. Think about the praise we hear. She's such a good girl, never causes trouble, or he's such a nice guy, always helps everyone. Hidden inside these compliments is a risky idea that being good means never saying no, never having needs, and never disturbing the peace. But genuine goodness isn't about disappearing. It's about showing up as your full, authentic self and still choosing compassion. When kindness comes from authenticity, it frees you. When it comes from fear, it traps you. So how do we move from trapped kindness to liberated kindness? Here are a few lifelong practices. First, practice the pause. When someone asks something of you, don't rush to agree. Take a breath. Check in with yourself. Ask, do I have the energy for this? Do I truly want to do this? Does this align with my values? Even a few seconds of reflection can protect you from automatic people-pleasing. Second, learn the power of gentle refusals. A no doesn't have to be harsh. It can be caring and calm. Try saying, I care about you, but I can't take this on right now. Or, I'd love to help, but I don't have the capacity. The world won't fall apart if you say no. In fact, your honest yes will carry more weight. Third, redefine your worth. Your value doesn't depend on how much you give away. It's inherent. You existed before anyone needed you, before kindness became your survival strategy. You are deserving of love even when you rest, even when you say no, even when you do nothing at all. Fourth, nurture your own garden. Fill your life with what feeds your spirit, meaningful friendships, creative outlets, and quiet moments. When your life feels full, kindness flows easily. It's no longer forced or exhausting. It becomes a gift, not an obligation. And fifth, embrace difficult emotions. Anger, sadness, frustration, they're not enemies of kindness. They're signals. They tell you when your limits are being crossed or your needs ignored. When suppressed, they turn toxic. But when acknowledged, they guide you back to balance. Now let's revisit the idea of masks. For many, kindness becomes a lifelong disguise. A smile to hide exhaustion, a yes to avoid conflict, generosity used to prove worth. But masks grow heavy. The longer you wear them, the harder it is to remember your real face. The goal isn't to discard kindness, but to take off the mask and let it come from your true self. The self that can say both yes and no with honesty. That is kind without disappearing. There's an old saying, if you want to know who you are, look at how you treat yourself when no one is watching. That's where real kindness begins. Not in others' approval or in being labeled the nice one, but in the quiet choices you make for your own well-being. Do you rest when you're tired? Forgive yourself when you fall short. Speak to yourself with compassion? If not, your kindness toward others stands on fragile ground. Here's the irony. When you treat yourself with real care, your kindness toward others becomes stronger, not weaker. It flows from abundance, not emptiness. It uplifts others without draining you. It invites them to grow with you instead of leaning on you endlessly. And maybe that's the true message here. The dark side of kindness isn't about rejecting kindness, it's about transforming it. Turning it from a mask into a mirror, from obligation into choice, from survival into genuine love. So next time someone calls you kind, pause for a moment. Ask yourself, is this kindness born from fear or from freedom? From exhaustion or from fullness? From the mask or from the real me? Your answer will reveal more about you than any compliment ever could. Because in the end, the real threat inside kind people isn't their anger, limits, or boundaries. It's self-neglect. And once you face that, once you lay down the mask, your kindness won't fade. It will grow, stronger, clearer, more radiant. It becomes the kind of kindness that not only sustains others but keeps you alive too. And maybe that's the highest form of kindness, to live as your full unapologetic self. To show that compassion doesn't mean self-erasure, it means truth. That's the kindness the world truly needs. Not endless yeses or silent suffering, but the courage to love without losing yourself.